Please join me in welcoming our moderator, retired Lieutenant General Clint Hinote, as well as speakers Holly Levanto, Vice President of Analytic Platform Expansion at Booz Allen Hamilton, Tara Murphy Dougherty, CEO of Javini, and Andrew Black, Emerging Technology Lead at Amazon.
Please grab a seat. Well, everyone, it's great to welcome you to what I think is going to be a really informative panel. Thank you for sticking with us to the almost end of this two-day conference, and I'm really excited about this panel. I'm excited about what we can learn from these leaders in the national security and technology space. And so what I'll do, I'm Clint Hinote. I used to work in the United States Air Force. I used to be the Air Force's futurist. And now I get a chance to participate on the defense panel with SCSP. And I'm so proud of what SCSP has done here at the AI Expo. What I'll do is I'll ask Holly and Tara and Andy to give us just a little bit about yourselves and what you're involved with right now. And then we'll get into some good conversation.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Levanto. I'm a vice president in Booz Allen Hamilton's AI business, focused primarily with the Department of Defense. Booz Allen is the #1 provider of AI services for the federal government. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but the way that we execute against that is understanding the mission needs of our customers and connect data to their questions. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, good to see you, Holly. Good to see you, Clint and Andy. Really happy to be up here. My name's Tara Murphy Dougherty. I'm the CEO of Javini. We're a defense technology company, and we build software for the acquisition ecosystem. So today, the way that the Department of Defense manages its major weapon systems and platforms is mostly in spreadsheets. I know, you're shocked. They use data calls and email and pick up the phone or a VTC to the prime to figure out what is happening in the industrial base and in the global markets that are going to impact their programs. And the reality is there's no commercial software on the market until the launch of our flagship product, ARC, that is purpose-built for those program offices, the program executive offices, the material command sustainment centers, lifecycle management centers, all the people who conceive of, produce, sustain, and modernize these critical platforms. So that's what we're doing in an AI-enabled way with commercial data and modern software.
Hi, everybody. What an honor to be on this panel with esteemed colleagues, and what a cool conference. My name is Andy Black. I lead a peculiar part of AWS. I lead the Emerging Technology Organization. You can think of us as the ones who bring all of the R&D capabilities of AWS and our partner ecosystem into national security, defense, civilian agencies and give them a competitive advantage. And so emerging technology means artificial intelligence, means high-performance computing, means edge computing. It also means space. It means quantum. If anybody wants to talk about post-quantum cryptography, I'm all in. I'd love to have that conversation with you. But today we're here to talk about AI, so that includes generative AI. And really what we focus on is identifying those problems, those tractable problems, and helping organizations not only leverage a portfolio of services and capabilities from compute all the way up, but then also leveraging the partners, the professional services, and the ecosystem of capabilities to build that MLOps capability that really helps them scale up. So really excited to be here and very much looking forward to this conversation.
Well, I am too. And as you can see, we have an all-star cast here to be able to talk a little bit about decision-making in the government and what technology can do. And Holly and Tara, I think I'll start with that with you all. Holly, you're involved in providing support for the government, for the Department of Defense. And you see how technology is being applied in decision-making every day. And Tara, you work for a company, you lead a company that produces a product in ARC.ai that is like tailor-made for decision-making in the government, in the DoD, in the acquisition space. So what are you seeing? What is exciting to you right now? We might get a little bit later on to what is concerning to you, but I'd be really interested in hearing, like, what are you seeing right now? And how is the government, how is the Department of Defense able to take the newest technologies and make better decisions.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better place to talk about this topic than here at SCSP. Thanks, SCSP, for hosting this event. It's great to have all these partners here together. I think I'm going to start, even though we wanted to talk about exciting first. I want to see from the audience who, whenever you hear about using AI for decision making in the Department of Defense, are you nervous about that concept? Is there anyone? Anybody?
Good question.
Well, I'm just a few. I'm also a veteran. I was in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I've been supporting federal digital transformation for the last 14 years at Booz Allen, and I'd say that I am more nervous about not using AI to be able to synthesize data, the vast amount of data that is out there, and that I would rather a leader veer away from the gut decision making that they've been doing for years, especially whenever it comes to lethal force. Now, there's always going to be a human in the loop, or for at least for the foreseeable future, for some of our AI solutions for lethal force. But the thing that is important for our leaders to have is the right data at the right time and synthesized in a way that it's easy for them to make quick decisions. And I feel like we're starting to lay the groundwork for that in the Department of Defense, getting our data quality levels up, sharing more across some of the data silos through what we've been doing in data mesh and some of the larger data platforms that exist in the Department of Defense. But I'm actually very excited about where we're going for decision making, and I'm ready for what's next.
I'm excited too. And I would say one way to think about the differences between our companies, besides the 35,000 employees to not quite 500 employees, is the breadth of your services versus our very targeted approach today. And so within one particular vein, I'll talk about where I'm really excited to see significant AI adoption. And I like your question, Holly, because if you ask government employees, or if we had a room full of just DoD program office staff here, and you ask them, not only are you concerned about the idea of AI for decision making, but does it terrify you? Every hand would go up. And so what we've found is, don't talk about the AI. Just talk about the mission impact of AI-enabled capabilities. And so long as what you're doing fits with the regulations and the security standards, then you can leverage AI in a way that empowers people in their day-to-day work without the hand-wringing that happens the second that you mention the AI aspect. So we at Gavini have been using artificial intelligence for years. Most companies here really have. It didn't start for us in November 2022. It started 6, 7, 10 years ago when we really embraced machine learning technologies, especially for data collection, curation, entity extraction, and now today really for recommendation engines and decision aids. So in the acquisition ecosystem, which is our space, what we're seeing is incredible use of our platform and therefore AI, not just for getting a much better picture of what reality is for your particular program, what your supply chain looks like down to the nth tier, where those raw materials come from, where there might be foreign involvement in your program, all of which is enabled by AI-driven processing of data at scale, and a scale that DoD hasn't previously used in that particular application. But also, how do you not just surface those areas of concern or risks or problems? Don't solve for your obsolete part after it's happened. Use AI to predict the problems that are coming, and then use the recommendation engines and the decision aids in order to surface to these offices the pathways, the actions that they can take to mitigate the challenges. All of that is possible today because of artificial intelligence. And when we go and we talk to our program office customers or program offices that we want to support, we don't mention any of that. We just say, we can make sure that your program is more secure, it is more available for the warfighter, and that you can move to a proactive rather than reactive posture in terms of dealing with the challenges that emanate from the industrial base. That latter framing is something that gets people very excited. That's what they're after. They want to drive better mission outcomes. And so in a way, it's like you bring in AI through the back door by, just as we always have, keeping the focus on the mission.
Yeah. Andy, I envy your title. You handle emerging technologies for Amazon Web Services. That's got to be a pretty
Coolest job in tech.
Yeah,
It's pretty.
So for those of us who may not be following the true edge of where we are right now, give us a description of like what is truly state of the art when we talk about cloud, when we talk about government services using cloud. Is the government even close to using state of the art, and should we be?
Great question. So first off, state of the art, right? Cloud is, shall we say, a full stack conversation, right? You talk about compute, you talk about models, you talk about services. Well, let's start actually at the outside of it. Security is job zero, right? Security, establishing a good quality layer of security. When we talk about national security, it's in the name, right? That's both offense and defense. Well, in our case, making sure that the mission can be prosecuted regardless of the conditions is state of the art, right? That is making sure whether you're on the battlefield in a disconnected environment or you're back home, that mission is required. That architecture is state of the art, right? That is a necessity. We do that all day and every day across many, many different industries, including government. So that's one. Secondly is, when we talk about, we're in an AI conference, state of the art in cloud and AI, that's partly at the compute layer, right? The cloud relieves the undifferentiated heavy lifting of ensuring that you're always refreshing your hardware. You're always getting the state of the art. Those latest NVIDIA chips are available to you. That's our job. And we always make sure that there's enough capacity in anticipation of demand, right? And so the community, each government agency has a tremendous access to state of the art, H100s, A100s, and so forth. We have different instance family names. If anybody's familiar with Amazon, we have really weird names for lots of things. P4s and P5s, P4DEs, kind of crazy. But yeah, that stuff's being used really heavily today, because the models that are being employed are using that. So if you look at Anthropic, for example, they're using the A100 and H100s to run and operate their models, and the government is adopting and using these state-of-the-art models, these frontier models. But that's also a place where state-of-the-art is choice. It's about recognizing that not every model is good for every job, and matching the right model for the job versus the right compute instance, and knowing that you might train a model on a high-performant vast chipset, but you're going to run the model, the inference side, to save on money, frankly, so that you can actually scale and get more detections for your dollar, right? More mission for the dollar. And then at the application layer, making sure that your builders have access to state-of-the-art tools and services like SageMaker really requires a good MLOps process. And that's where our partnerships with systems integrators that are oftentimes right there alongside the customer, that expertise, relatively new in many cases. There are plenty of pockets where you're seeing that really at speed and scale with the appropriate guardrails. So I love where your conversation started. It all starts with a decision. It all starts with some governance and some security. Then under the hood, focus on using those newest and greatest technologies in a way that can really deliver impact.
Yeah, and we're strong partners and a strong partnership with AWS, and that dependent on the mission that we see, AWS, whether it's using the commercial cloud to be able to solution the gov cloud that AWS offers, or even if the mission precipitates it, on-prem solutions, having that variety of how we can move models up and down, that is critical to be able to execute against the mission. So happy to be a partner.
Containers are an important part of that.
Right.
We work really closely at Booz Allen in several places, phenomenal partnership, but being able to know where in your architecture to train and where to run inference, again, is kind of state of the art. Now, I didn't answer one part of your question. There are definitely parts of the government that are state of the art. Mm-hmm. And I would say are doing things that commercial industries, there's a bar for reliability and security that even commercial industries don't have to hit, that there are parts of government that are definitely clearing that bar. It's pretty remarkable.
So you all have given me so much to be able to follow up on. So I'm going to go in reverse order here and follow up with each of you. So Andy, you mentioned frontier models.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of excitement about frontier models, and we've heard a lot of news about different companies who are really doing some amazing things with these models, and some of the compute power is truly unbelievable. I have heard people in the government say this, and what I'm going to ask is a reaction from you. The government, and especially the Department of Defense, doesn't necessarily need to be on the leading edge of frontier models. Maybe it's good enough that the government can be a fast follower and allow companies like OpenAI and Anthropic to kind of test the envelope, and then at some point we'll figure out what the true use cases are for the government and adopt those. How would you react to that?
First off, I would start by saying there's more to the world than frontier models, right? A very performant 8 billion parameter model sometimes is the tool for the job. But since we're in the frontier category, multi-hundred billion parameter sort of general purpose models, they're phenomenal at understanding a lot about the world, but requires some, I'll put it in the customization category. A lot of people talk about fine tuning. I actually would focus more on RAG as a better analogy. But does the government really need to be at the cutting edge? I mean, it's a competitive advantage. So why wouldn't you want to be adopting the latest and greatest technologies? That being said, the government has certain requirements around security, reliability, cost is part of it, right? I mean, these things have to be accounted for. So I'm not sure I would say fast follower is the strategy I would recommend, but more about precise application of the tool for the right job.
Okay.
I think it's also about the collaborative model. So, for example, I was at one of the Army software factories. I will not attribute exactly which one. And yes, it is sad in and of the fact that there is more than one to begin with. Like, that already is a problem in my mind. And they were so excited. These engineers were so excited to show off to me and some other industry leaders the fact that they had rebuilt OpenAI, basically ChatGPT, like GPT-3 level models for the Army. Like, why? Why would you do that? OpenAI did it. They're past GPT-3. They're on to the next best thing.
Right.
There is no need for the government to recreate what American industry does better than DoD and the U.S. federal government do. The question becomes, how do you make sure that the United States federal government is getting to adopt those technologies for the purposes of serving U.S. national interests? And when that model works well, we are better than any country in the world because we've got the best industry in the world and we've got the best government in the world. So we have to cater to each other's comparative advantages. And in my mind, when it comes to AI, data, certainly software, I mean, cloud computing, the government should not be starting anything from scratch.
Sure. So that brings up a very interesting follow-up question. When you were talking with the software factory, what was their answer and what was their use case they were pursuing with reinventing what I assume was a large language model?
Yes, it was a large language model, and the feature aspect of it for them was the fact that it existed on a classified network.
Oh.
Which is, I mean, to your point, Andy, there's a need for that, but there's no reason that you can't, again, adopt, configure, and push it up. Yes. Yeah. And so the idea, now, maybe there's a training aspect of it, and there, it's almost an educational environment. But I would hope that they would take the perspective of, we've proven we can build great LLMs. Let's think about how do we take what the market has done really well and build on top of that for what only the U.S. Army needs and the commercial sector is never going to deliver for us.
Holly, I think I sensed a little bit of a reaction there when we were talking about the reason why the government felt like it had to reinvent a model was because of the classified environment. My suspicion is you operate in the classified environment every day.
Yes.
And how do you react to what you just heard?
Well, we work with a lot of, like I mentioned before, key partners, a lot of them in this room. And Booz Allen is very well versed in the classified space, and working with our partners, trying to bring their solutions into government environments, whether those are classified environments or if they're operational environments. So I think that as long as we have the appropriate ways to be able to bring in new talent and new partners into that ecosystem, then I think that recreating the wheel or trying to reinvent something or develop it ourselves is not the right solution. It's really about how do we find the different pieces, pull them together, and then lift them up to the right classification level.
So you brought up this, what I want to kind of pull on right now, which is the interaction between humans and the technology. And one of the things we were talking about before we came on stage was you're actually seeing pockets in the government use real-time authoritative data with analytical tools to include AI tools, and you're seeing decisions being made off of that data. What are you noticing with the way that people are reacting to the new tools and the possibility of making decisions in a different way than what they're used to?
I mean, honestly, they're excited. I was recently over in UCOM and AFRICOM talking to them about the use of tools and the availability of data and making sure that we have the data that they need access to, real time, available, and to the right quality level for them to be able to leverage it across a lot of different platforms. And that's been very successful. I'd say harkening back to like my service. I know I'm sure you have a lot of service stories, and my sea story is when I was a navigator on an amphibious ship, and I got a directive to change how we were driving our ship based on optimal fuel levels. But I, as an operator, knew my data. I knew how fast my ship could go, and when I was seeing expense of fuel, and I could see that things weren't connecting between the policy and what was being passed down and what we were actually seeing in the data on the ship. And so I'm excited about what we're able to do. We're seeing a lot of this right now in the Indo-Pacific, trying to understand how we're going to use fuel data, how to make optimal decisions around that, and where do we position things that it's going to be the best for the future of the federal government.
Very quick follow-up. Has anybody wanted to protect their data and maybe even not share their data? You don't have to name names.
I'm seeing the walls start to come down. And I think it's not a bad thing to want to protect your data or to own your data. But making that available to others is the thing that needs to happen. It's around the government owner of the authoritative system, making sure that their data is understandable to others and has connections to other systems so that you can pull those data sources together for decision making. So yes, those things can be true and not negative. Now, not sharing their data, I've seen that too.
Glenn, do you mind if I give a quick
please
tag onto that one? Actually, data lakes and data interoperability is definitely a growth trend. That's a great business, which is terrific, exciting. It's hard, right? The silos are there, but I'll give you one example. This week, in fact, NGA is announcing a data lake, right? What's called the Unclassified Data Lake for NGA. And it's a way of bringing in a broader circle of partners, right? So they are creating a data, I'm retraining myself, not a data asset, a data resource, so that they can leverage academia, private industry, partner nations, in a much more strategic way. And that's a symbol of a pattern. You see that in many agencies these days. It's very exciting, I think.
That's a really
And it's going to unlock AI potential across
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that people are seeing the potential, and therefore maybe they're letting their guard down just a little bit. Tara, you provide a product to people who have traditionally not had access to this information. What is their reaction to getting the information that you're providing? And what does it mean for their decision making? And are you seeing any both good and bad things that are happening right now from the simple fact they've never had this data before, and now they have it. How is it like really proceeding with them?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of working in technology, to be totally honest, is when you can have a dramatic impact on taking friction out of somebody's day job, their lives get so much better. And so honestly, the reaction we typically get is, oh my God, you have saved me so much time. And often it's time and pain. So I'll give you an example just in the supply chain analysis space. The average amount of time saved over a work week for our user, as opposed to the way they used to do things previously, 75%. That's 3/4 of your work week back just because somebody finally made software for you, for your actual job. And so that's very gratifying. The other thing that we see is because we've compiled external data, this is stuff that doesn't exist in DoD's own internal data systems. Right. And so the alternative that, many of us have experienced as government employees, it is there almost is none. There's not a lot on Google for bespoke, esoteric national security activities. If you look up a part number, good luck getting any real information on it. And so this immediate visibility, the gaining the ability to just see and easily access information that was previously unknown to you is game changing. And then the third thing is there's so much government data that is shareable at this point. So whether it's a customer that's providing us data access and saying, yes, you can expand the boundary, I want other offices to be able to see this, or it's simply data that the United States government publishes that we've been able to add fidelity to and curate and make useful. What it provides to a user is visibility outside of their own straw hole. And that too is game changing. So a good example would be, I'm in the Navy and I manage an amphibious ship. And I just found out that the lead time on one of my critical parts went up by 300 days. This is not uncommon, by the way. There's nothing that DLA has on hand. I don't have anything else in my own program office or depot. I now have the ability, which I would have lacked otherwise, to see, oh, wait a minute, there is a Marine Corps ship or an Air Force ship. Does the Air Force have ships? Oh, yeah. You know what I mean. There is a part.
Everybody has an Air Force. Everybody has a Navy. Everybody has an Army.
Yeah, there we go. There's a part that the Air Force has on another platform that is either swappable or is the same thing. And that extends into the commercial sector as well. So those are the kinds of decisions that someone, even at a very low level, can make and immediately get that thing back online.
That's really cool. Andy, you mentioned Edge Cloud.
Oh, yeah.
So it seems to me that despite the fact, like I live in Northern Virginia, I suspect many of you do too, and you can't look anywhere without seeing a data center popping up. and I actually think that's awesome, but I also understand that there's a lot of them out there. But Edge Cloud seems to me to be one of those applications for military use that could be a game changer. Can you take us through where we stand with Edge Cloud, where you think we're going with Edge Cloud, and what are the differentiators between every day, we're all walking around with our iPhones and we have connectivity and we can upload and download versus being, say, for example, in the Indo-Pacific, where you don't necessarily have access to a ton of Wi-Fi, a ton of servers, but you're still needing access to all the information that we're gathering and providing?
Yeah, what a wonderful question. So let me start with a couple of quick scene setters. When we talk about edge, that is a lot of definitions to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? So we think about it both in land, sea, and space. Right? So wherever that edge node is, it's outside the data center, it's remote. I generally think about sort of dismounted edge, right? So maybe patrol level edge, but there are a lot of people that also include small data center in their definition. I personally do not. So edge is really important for a couple of reasons. One is we're seeing a growth in smart sensors. So not just the ability to collect data, but actually the ability to process data at the edge. So, there's a Jetson Nano board that has a GPU that's like the size of my hand.
Yeah.
We have a fellow on our team that built a radio frequency machine learning model. He can deploy it onto that form factor, which is remarkable. The most important thing of it is because of the cloud and the ability to deploy through an IoT deployment pipeline, he can have 1,000 of these things. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. He can deploy it worldwide. So as he needs to update that model, maintain his fleet, the cloud, he can do it from his laptop. In another example, we have companies that are orchestrating their constellations and commercial satellite from a laptop in their hotel. Because again, the cloud can handle the deployment. So from my standpoint, I think we're seeing a maturation in the form factors of what edge means. That is now this modular data center concept with, we'll say, ruggedized tower sort of form factor plus laptop, right? All the way down to that sensor level, but then also inclusive of onboard processing for space and satellite. I think it's really exciting. I think as we figure out the form factor, the security layers, the most important thing of it all is going to be that deployment platform. How do I turn that node into a processing point, into a productivity point, into the ability to actually deploy a model that can do important things, whether it's an analyst, whether it's a targeter, whether it's an IoT sensor. So to me, it's that IoT layer that's critical.
I think it's really important that we connect the technology that you just described to the concept of how we want to fight in the future, which is going to be pushing information and processing information, not back in the Air Operations Center or the large headquarters,
That's right.
but probably forward at a command node that lives not that far away from the actual fighting. And the technologies that you just described have the potential to make that a reality. And that has the potential to really change the way we do things in a very positive way. I'll tell you, I used to be the Air Force's chief wargamer. And every time we modeled command and control with a decentralized forward node, it was good for us. And in some cases, really good for us. So here's the, go ahead.
And just quickly on that, like we're talking about warfighting capability, but part of that is also just good old fashioned budget management.
Yeah.
So if you can actually do the pre-processing on the ground so the warfighter can take advantage of it, you don't necessarily need to send that full payload over the very expensive satellite constellation that the government operates. That's now budget that's liberated that can be used for other, frankly, higher value things. While the data takes a slow track home, the inferences can be used immediately because now you've reduced them down to a smaller form factor that can get over the pipe.
Open question for any of you or all of you. So sometimes the government is challenged to buy things. I know that comes as a shock to everybody in the room. And I have heard that there is some difficulty in us figuring out how we buy software, how we buy. I can't imagine that this is true, but I suspect maybe it is a little bit. If someone came to you and said, what would you change about government acquisition, government processes to be able to better incorporate the newest decision technologies into our decision making? What would you say? And I'll just throw it out there and see who.
I think we all know here that innovation moves faster than definitely congressional decision making in our budgets and contracting cycles. I think that has been a lot of work around the development of OTA authorities and giving those within the government to be able to procure directly. I think there's been a lot of success in that. We've been looking in outcomes-based contracting, understanding what is the problem you're really trying to solve. Don't dictate your requirement. Don't go through a long, arduous process to be able to create something large, but let's try and understand the problem you're trying to solve, and then let's experiment on it. And I think that we found some success in that. And also, as an integrator, an AI services provider at Booz Allen, we work with, and we would like to work with even more of the people in this room to be able to help on-ramp and connect some of the things that they're trying to do that answer the questions that we are hearing from the federal government.
That's good. That's good. Anybody else?
Well, I have so many.
Have a professional one speak.
I mean, so Tara, tell me, are there issues with government procurement and software and AI and things like that?
One or two.
Yeah.
One or two. Yeah. So I mean, literally, I hope there's no event after this for this stage because I could keep going. So I won't. I will keep it to 3 specific, which I think are the most important changes that, and this is where my answer is going to differ from like a 900-page PPBE commission report. These are immediately implementable today. Number 1, commercial item preference is a United States federal law. There is not enough policy scaffolding around that law to actually drive enforcement and implementation. So one of the things that the policy community could do to support innovation in the federal government is to ensure that the law is followed, that to the maximum extent possible, the government buys commercial software and configures it for its use rather than building software itself. So that's number 1 and has all sorts of benefits for both U.S.
Which, as you say, is the law.
Exactly.
As it is written today.
Exactly. So let's just start there. Number 2, there should be SLAs that federal agencies are held to for accreditation and ATOs. I've heard a lot of mentions of ATOs, authorities to operate for software and AI and data and cloud platforms throughout the past 2 days. And the context of every single comment is how they continue to be incredibly lengthy, incredibly painful, and incredibly expensive to businesses. And part of the problem with that is not that the security bar is so high. Actually, the engineering controls are the easiest part. It's that the administrative side of these ATOs, the accreditation, is a total black box. And the industry side is held to standards in terms of responsiveness and deadlines and expectations, but the government is not.
Yeah.
That is the definition of bad partnership. So let's put SLAs in place that say, if I submit my package to you, DISA, you are going to turn around within 30 days and give me an answer one way or the other.
Right.
That is very doable. The third recommendation would be in the policy around data rights and ownership. There is a big glaring absence of nuance that I think would accelerate innovation, not just in the tech space, but across military applications to include hardware and major weapon systems and platforms. And that nuance is the fact that DoD is right now saying more and more, we just need all the data rights.
Yeah.
I have to own the data. I hear it all the time. No, you don't. You have to own the data that is coming off of your censored platform that you hired a company to go out and build for you, typically under a cost plus or some sort of contract like that. Do you have rights to that data, federal government? Hell yes, you do. That's your system. You wanted it censored. Now it's collecting all this data. You have to have the technical data package in order to maintain the system, in order for it to be affordable throughout the sustainment cycle, the sustainment stage of the life cycle, which is 70% of the average military platform's entire lifespan. So that's fine. You know what you don't have to have? You don't have to own commercial data. And not carving that out and saying, we have gaps in terms of what we can see in our own data pipelines. We need to procure data that the commercial sector is creating and refining, but that's a commercial product and we just need to be able to use it. We don't have to own it. DoD doesn't have that policy today, and they should.
That last part about owning the data has become a very controversial topic, both within the Defense Department and outside. In fact, there was just a Defense Innovation Board report that basically said we need to own all the data, but the nuance wasn't necessarily communicated. So that brings up a really important point.
One last point on that report. The irony is that it was the signature from the Defense Innovation Board on that report is Mike Bloomberg.
Yes.
And yet if
Yes.
The Department of Defense implemented those recommendations, Mike Bloomberg would never be able to sell his platform to the United States.
There is some irony there, for sure. Quick get off the stage question.
All right.
I see a lot of folks out in the audience who are in this world, in the tech space. Are you bullish on the future? What advice would you have for them as you think about what's coming up inside of this world of emerging tech and decision making? Holly, we'll start with you.
I'd say first, come by booth 253, Booz Allen's booth, if you are looking for an in to understand how to engage with the Department of Defense. We want to know about you. We want to know about your companies. That's my first call to action. And then I would stay informed. There's a lot of information out there around where the federal government is trying to go, what Congress is asking of them. And there are a lot of unanswered questions still today. And so there's still a need for greater innovation from this audience to be able to solve for those issues.
Tara.
I'm super bullish. I think the emergence of organizations like SCSP, the fact that this grew out of something that started last year to honor Ash Carter, is a testament to just how much interest and willpower there is behind seeing through Ash Carter's legacy of driving technology innovation for U.S. national security interests. This is a testament to it. So yes, very bullish.
Awesome. Andy.
All right, so I am extremely bullish as well. They took my answers, so I'm going to come up with a new one. If anyone knows Gartner, I came from there. The hype cycle is a big part of our ethos. We're past the hype cycle, right? We're into the productivity part of this. I am extremely bullish on the improvements in governance, the improvements of organizational readiness and capability. But as an entrepreneur, and we've got a couple up here on stage, I think for all of you, you should be extremely bullish because not only are there more customers looking for what you're selling, but there are companies like those that are here on stage that are here to actually help you. We have a marketplace offering. Like, these mechanisms didn't exist when I started my company 15 years ago. I'm delighted they're here now. Use them, right? There's an entire ecosystem here for you. Take advantage of it. Customers, investors, and partners. So with that, I am extremely bullish.
Those are great words to end on. We could go a lot longer, but unfortunately our time is up. Help me show our appreciation for the panelists and what we've learned today. Thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you.